2, 1, let's go.
Da, 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 da. It's life outside the box.
Come on, you've got to...
Oh, I was supposed to add?
No, you've got to rate his performance. Like,
Out of
Life
10.
outside the box.
there
Yeah.
you go.
This week we have a professional singer on the
No.
No.
Okay, yeah, so that's a nice, actually, intro there, Samuel. Who is our guest this week?
So this week we have Nicole. She is a coaching consultant. So if we have any coaches out there listening to the show, you're definitely going to learn a lot from this episode. I'm certainly very excited. I'm sure you are too, Mike.
Can't wait.
So we'll take it on to Nicole. Let's get an introduction from yourself.
Yeah. Okay. So I am a learning consultant. My background is in education, but I also was a athletic coach, a volleyball coach for a really long time as well. So, and I'm a CrossFitter. So the worlds collide.
So that's how we've got you here. So what I'm super interested in before we move on to the questions from the viewers is a little bit about your athletic background. We touched upon it in a little chat before, but do you want to just tell the viewers at home just a little bit about your athletic background?
Sure, yeah. So I grew up as an athlete. I played basketball, volleyball. I was a dancer at one point. And then all of a sudden when I was 17, I had a traumatic experience and I stopped playing sports. I stopped working out. I didn't move my body at all for 10 years. And then I found CrossFit about 1.5 years ago. And I don't want to say I got addicted, but it helped me heal a lot and brought me back into the fitness space. And I'm so incredibly thankful for it. And it's helped me grow a lot, not only as a teacher and a coach myself, but also just as a human being.
So you took to it like a duck to water, just super smooth.
I wouldn't say it was smooth.
Choppy water.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on. So as you guys all know, me and Samuel throughout the Life Outside the Box podcast web Instagram page open up a question box 24 hours before, and actually yourself has done one as well this week. So we've got 3 amazing questions there that we're going to ask you. From Maud Ekman Yoga. I love learning, but I can't seem to remember what I learn. How can I make my learning stick better?
Yeah, so this is a wonderful question because especially for people who love podcasts and reading books and learning. So there's a few things that you can do. And the first thing that you should do while you're learning is to connect it to a previous experience. So let's say you're in the gym and like I'm thinking about Olympic lifting, right? And one of you guys are coaching me on how to start a lift. And I tend to actually start a little bit too quickly when I'm, deadlifting and cleaning. And you coach me and you say, like slow it down. So immediately what I'm going to do is connect it back to when I was a dancer, when I was a kid, and an 8 count. So instead of an 8 count, I'm going to do a 2 count. So I'm immediately helping my brain connect to a previous experience. And because of that, my brain is going to say, oh, this information matters. It's not going to be stored in short-term memory. It's going to be stored in long-term memory instead, right? So you're making it easier for your brain to latch onto. The second thing is to immediately apply the information. In the gym, this is super duper easy, right? Because as coaches, you give feedback, I immediately use it. But when you're reading or listening to a podcast, that may not be the case. So what you want to do is you want to have if you're reading a book, if it's a physical book, write in the book. Stop, write down what you're thinking, how you can apply it to your life. Or even, grab a notepad as you're listening to this podcast, jot your ideas down. And then the last thing I think is pretty, I don't want to say self-explanatory, but make sure that you reflect, right? That if you're recording yourself in the gym doing a lift, go back after that class, look at that lift again, think about what did I do right, what did I do wrong, visualize how are you going to do it better. And you can take that principle to just about any other topic as well.
I think that's super interesting because there is like a well-renowned model of learning, like a basic model of learning, is called the VAC system. So visual, audio, or kinesthetic. So that will put you into like where you learn best, either visually by watching someone do it, audio by listening to how somebody describes it, or kinesthetically by doing it yourself. So you actually covered all three of those topics there on all 3 points.
Exactly.
Which works out really well.
Yeah. And there's actually an added one that it isn't as openly recognized, but reading and writing. And that's different from visual learners, actually. So the writing component for some people and reading component is a whole other level.
Which is probably why journaling's taken off, super popular at the moment.
Yeah.
So Samuel, in the gym, what we talk about when we talk about people learning new skills and becoming masters of new skills, we talk about either 1,000 hours or 10,000 hours.
Yeah. So like Nicole said, is willing to continue your learning and not like reviewing on what you've done and how you can go about making that better. Like you said there, 10,000 hours, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in a week. It's not going to happen in a year. You have to keep going and going and going and putting that time in. And sometimes you do have to take a step back and relearn something or go at it from a different approach. So I really like what you said about trying to relate it to other things that you've done in your life and other like motor skills that you've picked up, especially in the younger years. And if you can transfer that in, as an athlete or as a coach, channel into something that somebody has potentially done in their younger years that allows them to transfer a skill or part of that skill into learning something new, which I think is really interesting to dive deeper into and learn about.
Well, I see that there as like latching onto a previous skill as kind of hopefully using some of those hours doing that to knock off the 10,000 hours you need to master something.
Yeah.
Kind of stealing a bit of hours from another skill.
Yeah, because a lot of things do transfer over. Like when I worked as a surf instructor for 5 years, I could not look at somebody, but I could have a quick 2-minute conversation with somebody, and if they had any previous experience, especially in something like snowboarding or skateboarding or whatever, they're going to pick up surfing within the first like 10-15 minutes, and it's pretty much like a guarantee. I'm like, I can guarantee you're going to get this, because all you need to do is think to this similar things, similar feelings that you're feeling from the other sports and the skills that you've already learned, and just implement them into something slightly different, but the same kind of things will apply.
And you also touched upon something that me and Samuel do a lot of, which is videoing yourself. So we video like majority of our heavy lifts that we do in the gym, and people will look from the outside and think, oh, those two there just trying to get likes on Instagram, just trying to film content for Instagram. And really, realistically, it's probably 5% of the videos, if that, make it to Instagram. The rest is just for our own like CPD, for our own development.
Yeah. And I would add on to this, like if you are a coach or if you run workshops or seminars, the same concept applies. So rewatching those workshops, and sometimes you're like, it feels kind of cringy, like, you know, as a teacher, like, I don't want to see myself teach. But the reality is you're going to become a better teacher and a better coach if you do that. Like it's that skill is applicable beyond just the gym and lifting.
I absolutely love this section and love that answer there, because when I read the question, I automatically thought of like the back system when I did my PGC, and I learned about like kind of learning backgrounds and learning behaviours. And then I thought, I wonder how much we're going to touch upon that. And your first 3 answers were just bang, bang, bang. just kind of like what we get taught. So that's amazing. I love that.
I just want to touch on as well about the reading side of things, because I'm the sort of person that doesn't read, because I feel like when I do read,
can you read?
It's just always a joke, isn't it? I'm trying to open up my dyslexia and the troubles that I've had. But yeah, I don't read because I'll take a book and I'll read or try to read, and I'll go through 10 pages or whatever, and I'll be like, wait a minute, well, I have no idea what I just read. And it kind of like, I end up just looking at the words on the page, and my goal is to just get to the end of the page and turn the page and go to the next page, and that's the only real goal I have in my head. And I find it really hard to kind of take that information in, which I guess like the question is asking is, how am I going to retain that? And like you said, seeing it as a different thing. I'm not reading to get to the goal to get to the next page. I'm reading to take in what is on the page, stopping myself, taking notes, or applying it to something practical in my head that I can relate the information to, and I'm sure that will help me retain it.
I'm going to ask you both a question based around that. Do you think that comes from at school when you had homework of read this amount of pages at school, or when you're in trouble you have to be like read 10 pages of this or do whatever kind of thing? Is that like a something that's implanted in you that this isn't an enjoyable learning experience? This is just let's just get it done as quick and over as quick as possible.
Yeah, and I feel like probably it was. I probably did have that attitude at school, and it was at the end of the day, if I'm not interested in something, it's even harder for me to especially sit down and read it. Like I can watch a video on something, and if it's an interesting video or it's made well, it doesn't really matter what it's about. Like I watch random videos about how to build a bridge or something like that, which is not something that I'm really passionate about, but I can watch it and I'll finish watching and I'm like, oh, that was actually really interesting and educational to me. But if I picked up a book in a library like about how to build a bridge or bridge engineering or something like that, I wouldn't have the same enthusiasm because I wouldn't be able to absorb the information the same. I'm a very like visual learner. And going back to school, I have like dyslexia as well. So a lot of the times, especially when I'm reading, I'll merge two lines together without like actually thinking about it. So I'll be reading one line and then I'll accidentally put this bottom line into the top line, which is hard to explain. It just kind of happens. And then I'll go back and I'll read it again. I'll be like, I've just read two separate things, but it's the same thing on the page. So for me, reading just kind of gets frustrating, and I kind of just gave up because that was the case. It's like I can't read, I never get anything out of it, so why should I take the time to sit down and do it? But it's hard now because every single person I spoke to, I had a conversation with the other day, like, how have you read this book? It'd be really helpful for you. And I feel like I am missing out on so much because so many people, all my friends right now are reading and recommending books, and I think if it's something I can get into, then
no, I think the thing is what I got taught when I did my PGC especially was that everyone doesn't tick all three boxes of that. Some people learn in different ways, and just because you don't learn that way doesn't mean that you learn any less than anybody else. It just means that you need to find a way that suits your learning. So maybe for you personally, if you wanted to read these books, for example, you could listen to an audiobook.
Yeah, totally.
You'd still be getting the same information. In fact, you'd be getting more information because that would suit your learning needs more than if you were reading it. But you're still getting the same out of it as somebody who's reading it.
Yeah, so I guess that's drawing a big picture. It's really important to figure out what your learning needs are and how you learn, and then making sure that you go down those routes to make sure you're learning the most effective way.
Yeah. And taking it in small steps. I think for a lot of my students, I was an English teacher for 6 years, right? And they had the same troubles that you did. They just couldn't get through a chapter, let alone a book, you know? And so for me, what I did, I was like, I want to focus on the process, not on just completion. So every single page they had to write, they had to doodle, they had to make a comment, they had to write a story. I didn't care if they swore in it. I didn't care what they put in it, but I just wanted them to stop and slow down and start exercising that muscle in the brain. Because reading, just like anything else, just like learning, it's a skill that you can build over time. And the more that you break it down and simplify it, like I'm just getting to the end of the page and I'm applying the learning, the more your brain will be like, oh, this is okay. I'm not going to freak out, right? And then you start seeing after a page, then you focus on a chapter. And then you just chip away. And then it's an entire book.
Yeah, I love that little like doodle thing there as well, because what we get taught at school, that obviously doodling's bad. But if it's something that people enjoy doing, you're then relating an enjoyable experience with reading.
Yeah.
We didn't all go to school the same year as you, mate. Times have changed a little bit.
You were not that far behind me. In fact, for the viewers out there, it's Samuel's birthday in 2 weeks, is it?
Yeah, it is.
So
Big 30. Woo! Send your gifts to @Sambish92.
Okay, we're going to move on now to the next question. So this was from Jerica Terry. This was, I am looking at creating learning experiences for my businesses, but have no clue where to start. What should I do first?
Well, I think this ties in wonderfully with like breaking things down smaller and taking baby steps. So my number one recommendation is to start with a workshop or a masterclass. And the reason being is, first and foremost, it's the easiest thing for you to do as a coach, as an entrepreneur, is to create this small 1 hour, hour and a half experience for a group of people. it's a lot less intimidating than just jumping into creating a group program or a course, which everybody and their mother is trying to create, but that takes so much effort. And then you put it out there and it's not, you haven't tested it yet, right? So creating that small experience, and this is also good for your clients and your learners, because then they start to get the feel for how you teach, what you teach. And as you build that confidence, and then the added business bonus is also that you are building an exchange with your clients, right? The first exchange is going to be they're exchanging their time for your knowledge. Second is probably like an email, and then you graduate onto money. So you can fit a workshop into any of these for free, for an email, for a low amount of money, for a high amount of money eventually. And so it fits really smoothly into like your business, what do you call it? Like funnel almost?
Yeah. I love that, because something that I kind of look at when I want to create like a nutrition package, so like I want to create like a nutrition hour about a certain thing, I'll start by creating 6 10-minute things. And then those 6 10-minute things, it'll develop my skills in creating little things, and then when you put them together, all of a sudden you've got your hour.
Exactly. Yeah. And I want to mention that what you're doing is great for your clients' brains. Because we actually can't sit beyond 20 minutes and learn something new. Our brain literally shuts off.
You've just killed our 60-minute podcast.
Yeah. keep us there.
But we're not teaching something.
No, yeah.
Right? We're having a conversation, which is very different. Like our brains are wired to absorb stories better than just instruction and being talked at. So.
Yeah, no, I really like that as well, to break it down into bite-sized chunks, because it's really hard, like I said before, referring back to the book, it's like you look at the book at 100+ pages or the chapter at a time, and you don't really look at it as little sections along the way, or I don't personally. And it's the same like if you're trying to build something online or trying to create a course or something, it's like, oh, I'm looking at building this massive course, and suddenly it's almost overwhelming. And then all your motivation goes, because you're like, oh, I'm never going to finish this. For example, something that I do is I like to make YouTube videos and vlogs, and for me to create the whole thing takes probably like 15 hours. But if I do an hour a day just chipping away at it, then I build something big that takes a lot of my time over a small amount of time, and it's much more manageable, and the workload doesn't seem as scary. If you had told me, oh, you need to get out tomorrow, and I'm going to sit there 15 hours, I'm never going to do it.
It's the same with seminars. So when we do nutrition seminars, we look at, say, we've got 2 hours. Oh no, you've got to talk for 2 hours about performance nutrition. That seemed quite daunting in the first place. But when you think, well, I'll talk 10 minutes about carbohydrate timing, I'll talk 10 minutes about supplement use, I'll talk 10 minutes about this, I'll talk 10 minutes about this. And when you build all that together, all of a sudden you've got your 2 hours. And it was not daunting in the slightest. It was super easy.
Yeah, I guess it's just like planning ahead and planning before you start. So you have a strategy and how you're going to break it down, and everything is there, so you know what you need to do and when you need to do it, rather than just trying to do everything at once and not having a clear direction.
And the way that I kind of read what you said there is, say that you're looking to do an hour and you want to do 6 10 minutes, say, you can release those 10 minutes as we go along for your audience, for your clients. And then at the end of it, all your new clients after that can either have 6 10 minutes ones or can have a big hour one. So you can then use it however you want.
Yeah, exactly. And I think to elevate workshops and masterclasses even more, inserting in the application phase, right? Because I think that's missing, and that takes up a lot of time, like giving space for people to try things and play around with it. And we do that easily in the gym, because obviously we have to do the workout, but it's the same for seminars as well. And that takes up a huge amount of time.
Well, I loved what you put on Instagram. I think it was maybe a week ago now. Let's see. And it was about releasing something before it's ready. You were talking about, like, don't release things before it's ready, because then you kind of set yourself up for failure.
Yeah. I mean, I think in that context, I was speaking to take your time and create something that you know is going to create impact, instead of just like selling first and then creating afterwards.
Well, I read something last night which spoke about dopamine release, and it's like and it was saying don't tell people about your ideas and don't be in a rush to release things, because you get a short hit of dopamine which will replicate actually being successful and actually doing the act. So say that when I looked at that, as for me, when we were first started doing seminars, say first started booking this new world tour that we're doing now, and it was like I wanted to tell people, oh, we've got this booked in here, we've got this booked here, we've got this booked here, but it was too early really. But I wanted to tell people because I wanted that rush of dopamine, that like feeling successful from doing it, when realistically the right thing to do is just to wait a couple of months until everything's booked in, the whole thing, and we can release it to everyone.
Yeah, it's hard to fight those emotions, right? Because you're proud of what you've achieved, and you're excited, and you want to share it.
And you want to share it with people who you care about as well, and you care about their response, and you almost not want to impress them, but you want your friends to be proud of you.
Yeah, exactly. You're happy about it.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're going to move on now to a question from Shut Up Legs, which is Christian. Now, Christian does write into the show quite a lot. Normally, however, he talks about my socks and sliders choice. But so what I did this morning, Christian, is when I realised that you'd sent in a question which we can actually ask for once, was I didn't wear any socks just for you, pal. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see that. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Music, you just missed out on seeing my feet on camera. So unlucky. Normally, you'd have to pay a lot of money on OnlyFans for that.
Disgusting.
So Christian asks, when I am coaching a class, how do I make sure that my learners are learning effectively?
So, I mean, this is the ultimate like teacher coach question, right? So I would say checks for understanding and precise checks for understanding. And this is a very education term, but basically what this means is asking precise questions that are open-ended, not yes or no, right? So let's say you're coaching a class and you are talking about how to effectively do a burpee, right? And you show both like the pop-up and the step-up method. And then your initial response might be, does anybody have any questions, right? And people are more than likely going to be like, no, I don't have any questions.
Nobody says anything.
Yeah, right?
I get it, let me go.
Which is so irritating. Like as an educator, it's like, no, just I want to know, did I miss anything? And so instead, preparing yourself to ask more precise questions. So you could take a poll, be like, based off of what I just taught you, raise your hand, which strategy are you going to use? Are you going to use the pop-up? Raise your hand. Are you going to use the step-up? Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you don't know. And if majority of people say, I don't know, then maybe there's a gap in your explanation of what you use and when and why. So then you have an opportunity to loop back and say, okay, I use the step-up when I'm trying to conserve energy, and maybe it's a multifaceted workout, whereas I use the pop-up for, I don't know, being quicker, right? And then you go back, okay, and then you'll see the change in the numbers. So that's a really effective check for understanding, and you can deliberately plan going into a workshop or a class what questions you're going to ask, and if you don't get the answers that you want, looping back, reteaching.
I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here, just because of like kind of a few of our listeners, well, most of our listeners actually, who are coaches, have made the leap from in-person to online. Mm-hmm. So what makes that really tough is what we're talking about here is real-time feedback, yeah? So real-time feedback as a coach is super simple. Say you're teaching somebody to stop pulling so quickly on a snatch. You can just watch them do some snatch pulls there and then and see whether they've got it or not. Yeah? Now, when we're coaching online, that becomes very, very difficult. So obviously, I've just changed over my programming to use a format that allows the clients to upload videos, which does help, but it's if they upload a video during their workout, it might be another 4 or 5 days till they do that movement again. So I can give them feedback, and it might be another 4 or 5 days, and they may still not have understood the feedback I've given them. Mm-hmm. So how do we break that barrier? Is there a way, or is it just one of the barriers to online?
Yeah, no, I think there are ways that you can do that. So it takes a lot more thought ahead of time, and instead of just giving feedback, start asking more questions. Okay. More open-ended questions. So
when I leave feedback, so if I watch somebody's video and I decide that they're bending the knees before they're hinging the hips on a back squat, for example, and I watch it and I say, make sure next time you instigate the movement by hinging rather than bending your knees. And then would I ask them some feedback questions like, do you understand? Do you know what I mean? Do you, or what we're talking here?
Dig deeper into that. Instead of, do you understand? Do you know what I mean? Then I would ask them to, like, what does hip hinge mean to you?
Okay.
What other movements have you used a hip hinge? So have them thinking, connecting to that previous experience, like we had talked about, tailoring questions so that they're immediately applying that information mentally, and they can visualize for the next time that they step on the floor. That will make that information sticky.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You kind of just, I guess you're just guiding them into giving you the answer, but they're actually coming up with the answer themselves, rather than just saying, do you get it? Because most of the time people are just going to say yes, and then that's it.
Yeah, so I guess that
making them think about the movement.
To keep relating it to fitness, obviously, we could say then, what I want you to do here is I want you to instigate the movement by hinging your hips. Just refresh my memory, tell me 2 movements that are a hip hinge movement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then they're actually learning, and they're learning about what they're passionate about, and then they're learning for themselves of how to improve at the same time. I really like that poll thing that you said, because every single day I ask probably like 5 or 6 times to the class. I'm like, do you guys understand? Has anyone got any questions? And 90% of people don't say anything, and maybe 1 or 2 will just shout no. And then that's it. And it is frustrating, but at the same time I've learned to accept that nobody ever has any questions. And then I still go around to people and I'm like, is anyone needing help? Anyone have any questions? And it's not until you actually you make eye contact with someone, or you watch someone do it and be like, actually, can I help you? Do you understand? And then they will open up. But I feel like it's really hard to break through to one person when you're talking to 30 people or 40 people, for that one person to be like, sorry, it's me, I don't get it. So I guess that's another thing, that the poll thing is kind of split more safety in numbers. If you're asking the group as a whole, and then you can kind of like pinpoint out, or maybe a few people that are confused or whatever, and you can approach them one-on-one after.
I think that's going to lead lovely onto your bonus question, Sam. But obviously the safety in numbers thing, it's a very different experience when you're coaching one-on-one to when you're coaching the group experience. So as you guys know back home, every week either me or Sam have a burning desire to ask our guest a question. And Sam's come up with one this week. For yourself, Samuel, what's your bonus question for this week?
Yeah, so I've got lots of questions that I'd love to ask Nicole, because this is very interesting. However, from my point of view, and I'm sure a lot of coaches listening to this, we are CrossFit coaches, so we coach large numbers of people in a class environment, but we're also personal trainers, and we coach one-on-one. And I'm just interested to know if there's any different techniques to coaching large groups rather than coaching in a one-on-one kind of scenario.
I mean, definitely. So I said...
There you go. Question answered.
Yeah.
One word answer.
Yes.
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 There we go.
The answer is yes. And really, I mean, this is what my entire business is based off of. This idea, teaching and coaching in a group it's a different vibe. And what we just talked about before, asking precise questions, not yes or no questions, but open-ended or polls, that is one of the major differences. You have to come in more prepared. You cannot think on your feet as you can with a one-on-one. Because with a one-on-one, you're getting that direct feedback. You're paying attention to one person's body language, what they say, and you're directly responding to that. Whereas a group, you're getting all these different energies, responses, body language, and it's really hard for your brain to distinguish between all of them and then respond to all of them. In fact, it's impossible. So you have to prepare better. You have to prepare your questions better, your warm up better. By warm up, not only do I mean like physical warm up, but if you're coaching a seminar or a workshop or a masterclass, you have to warm up their brain as well and get everybody on the same page. Get everybody thinking about, how does what I'm about to learn connect to my previous experience? And once you warm up the group's brain, then you can start teaching them things, and they're more receptive to that information because you've primed and everybody's on the same page. And then you're also going to have to guide them through application. And I know, it's hard in a huge class, whether you're online or in person to give feedback to everybody. Nearly impossible, right? So how are you going to streamline that process of giving feedback so you don't feel as much pressure? You actually know that people are doing things correctly so they not only hurt themselves, but also become better athletes, or, you know, if you're a business coach, better business owners. Right?
Yeah. I think that really answers the question, and it's kind of something that's really overlooked. It's like you can be an amazing coach, but if you're a terrible communicator and you're not able to get that engagement from the class, it's really hard to get people to actually learn from you. If it doesn't matter what you're saying, if they're not listening, they're never going to learn it. And I feel like, for me personally, I'm sure other people listening to this will relate as coaches as well, is we don't really get any sort of training on how to physically talk to large groups of people or to keep people engaged. And like just by listening to you say now, is like, when I'm doing a warm up, why am I saying, oh, we're warming up your ankles because we've got running today? Why am I not saying, does anyone know why we're warming up your ankles today? And then hopefully someone will feed back to me and say, oh yeah, Sam, it's because we're going running, or we've got double unders. And then suddenly I've got into such of a bad habit of just speaking and not ever asking them anything. So I think I'm just going to try, for me, after this, to try and get back into being like, okay, what does this mean? Or what's this? What's an EMOM? Like actually getting some engagement from the group rather than just having everyone stand there and half of them talking and wandering off before I finish speaking.
There was two things there that really interested me personally, and it was about body language mainly. So in a one-on-one personal setting, when you're giving real-time feedback, body language is quite easy to kind of read because I'm presuming here that you spent more than 2 minutes with a person, so you kind of understand what that person means. But in a group setting of, say, 30 people, two people might give off the same kind of vibe, but be feeling two totally different things. One person might be super quiet and super like kind of focused because they 100% know what they're going to do and they're ready to smash it. One person might be super quiet and 100% focused because they have no idea what they're doing. So these two people are giving off the same vibe, but they're feeling two totally different things. And that makes a group class so tough to kind of to teach.
Yeah, and that's why preparing those checks for understanding, those questions, are so important. That's why even grouping people up, like, you know, especially at, you know, the gym we're at, there's people who are highly experienced, and then there's beginners. And how can you, you know, use those like highly experienced people to your advantage? You know, maybe grouping them with a beginner, right? And, or, you know, there's different strategies that you can use to take the pressure off of you in a group setting, both mentally and just physically moving around the room.
Yeah, that's one thing that I notice about when we train. One thing that you are particularly good at, and I know I don't really like giving you compliments, but you are particularly good at still giving everybody the same amount of time, regardless of whether we're a beginner or advanced. Because even though if you come to a class, even if you are one of the more advanced athletes in the class, it doesn't mean you deserve any less coaching time than anybody else. And what you will find, a lot of coaches will kind of tailor towards more beginners because obviously safety aspect, and that makes a lot of sense. But one thing you are really good at is not giving the same information to everyone, tailoring information to different people depending on where they're at.
Yeah, and people do need that. I had a conversation with somebody that's visiting the gym at the moment, and he said to me, he's like, I've been going to my same CrossFit gym now for X amount of years back home, and now I'm not getting any coaching. No one's ever coming and checking on me in my form. And he's like, I've come here and it's so refreshing to actually learn something new. And it's easy as a coach to be like, oh, this guy's been coming for 2 years. He knows what he's doing. I don't need to go over and sort him. And then inside that person's like, he said to me, he's like, I think I'm done. I'm not going to go back there anymore. And suddenly you've lost a member and part of the community because they're not feeling the value that they should be feeling. At the end of the day, everybody's a paying customer. Everybody is coming to the gym for their own reasons, but they still want to feel valued as a person and still not overlooked because you feel like they know what they're doing.
We talk about CPD a lot as coaches, continuing professional development. As coaches, how do we keep progressing to become better coaches? But then we also need to remember that our athletes or our clients are also on their own journey. So regardless of where they are on their journey, we still need to be providing them information to keep them moving.
Yeah, never stop learning.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
So I feel like those questions were really, really good actually. Really good. So there's a lot to take home from that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to nip onto our sections. So every week we have 3 sections that are designated. The first section we ask everyone, and it is, what is the most important thing you do outside of the box or gym that helps you inside the box or gym?
So this one is pretty simple and straightforward for me, and it's tracking my cycle.
Okay. Yeah.
For me, it completely changed the way I move through the world. Not just as an athlete, but as a business owner, as a partner, as a friend. And because I pay so close attention to it, I have been able to be more of my authentic self, improve drastically in all sections of my life, and not just as a CrossFitter, right? Like and I'm pretty proud of this, like only being a year and a half into CrossFit, I'm hitting RX numbers. I'm getting RX skills. I'm not a complete RX athlete, but I think it's because of tracking my cycle.
For those of you who are just listening to this and not watching on YouTube, me and Sam are smiling listening to this because it's something we are super passionate about individualization, about like not putting yourself in kind of everybody else's like pigeonhole, focusing on yourself and what you're primed to do that week, what you're primed to do that month. So it's something that I'm super happy you said that. For those guys out there who want to learn a little bit more about training around the menstrual cycle, just nip back to episode 4, was it?
Yeah, with Lauren, episode 3, I believe.
Episode 3 with Lauren, yeah, we spoke for a good 15-20 minutes just around training around the menstrual cycle. And so that's made me super happy that you've said that, because that is something that I feel like is so undervalued, especially genuinely for females in sport. And whether there's a stigma around whether people feel comfortable talking about it or not, still, I don't know. We as coaches try our best to be super professional so that people feel comfortable talking about it as much as possible. But it is so undervalued because it is so important. Like, it's so important, and people just tend to just program no matter what, talk about what, turn up to class, kill yourself every class, no matter where you are in your stage. And if you're having a bad day, or you're just being a wuss, get on with it. And that's just not the truth.
Yeah, so for me, there's 2 things that I got out of that, and the first one was that it's not just about sport, and how you said that it's made you better in all aspects of your life, which is like, it's so easy as a coach to think of the cycle as something that we use around training, but to hear you say that it's made your whole life better in your business and your work and your friendship, your relationship, is a really nice take on it. And it just shows that it's not just for athletes to think about tracking their cycle, it's for everybody. If you want to be the best version of yourself, then you're living proof, and it's really nice to hear that feedback. And the second thing was, I can't remember now, it's gone off the top of my head. Yeah, the second thing, sorry.
No, you're good. So I'll
think about it. The second thing was how you are 18 months into, we're talking about someone forgetting something to say before this podcast, so there we go, I've done it. How you're 18 months into training, and now you're at a position where you feel like you're really progressing and you've come really far. And we spoke about this with Lauren, that she said that if you want to go to the gym and smash yourself every week, you might feel great for a couple of months, but if you look for longevity, you're actually going to meet your goals quicker by following your cycle properly, rather than rushing and trying to train when you should potentially not be training at such high intensity, to get to your goals much quicker in the long run. And again, it's something you can use as proof for you 18 months into CrossFit, and you're already hitting RX numbers, you're doing gymnastic skills that potentially, if you hadn't have trained properly for those 18 months, you wouldn't be there yet.
For me, if I was going to try and simplify that answer, regardless of like gender or menstrual cycle, the body's such an amazing thing that we have to just appreciate it, celebrate it, and respect it, depending on where you are. So whether it be like for males for testosterone levels throughout the month, or whether it be like growth hormone production throughout the month, or whether it be females for menstrual cycle, etc. No matter where you are, as long as we're like celebrating our body and what it's doing and working with it rather than working against it.
Exactly.
Well, great answer.
There you go. So section 2. Now this is something that some people get this question, some people don't. We say this every week, but I'm super intrigued to see. What's your favourite thing to do outside the box or gym?
Deep conversations.
Deep conversations.
Nice. That's the first time I've heard that one, which is good.
I love it though.
Yeah, and I could answer this question in so many different ways, but at the end of the day, I love connecting with people and understanding what they believe to be is their purpose and why they move through the world the way that they do. And it makes me a better human being, understanding other people. And it really just fills me up. So
I love that.
Yeah. that's something I can relate to as well, because me and Nicole, we had a conversation about 2 weeks ago at a birthday party, and that's something that stuck with me for like the days and weeks after. I was like really kind of grateful for the conversation that we had together, and the time that you took to like, listen to me and everything. And it does definitely, not only is it good for you, but it's good for the people that you're talking to, which is really nice.
I mean, that super resonates with us and you especially, because you always say how when this door shuts here in the podcast studio for the hour and you get to talk to someone for an hour, it's probably one of the highlights of your week.
Yeah, because I don't get to do this stuff anymore, because you're just so distracted by the outside world, and it's really hard to just sit in here or it's really good to sit in here and not be distracted. Just have the lights and the camera and the action.
And I just want to say just a quick how proud I am of Samuel, because what George has done is he's turned the camera around so we can see the screen, and I've only caught him twice so far looking at the screen, so I'm super proud of him.
I'm on the edge of the camera, so I want to make sure I stay in frame for you guys.
He's not, he just wants to check his hair.
Check my hair.
Okay, section 3, before we talk about hair quickly, is your chosen topic. So what we're going to talk about now is something that Sonny kind of touched upon it in episode 5. I think was it episode 5? He touched upon this, and I'm super intrigued to hear what your take on it is, and it's the power of failure.
Yeah, so this has been a theme for me the past week, and people keep on bringing it up, so I just felt called to talk about it. In school, we're taught that failure has this permanence, right? If you fail a class, if you fail a paper, if, even if you lose a game, if you're an athlete, that's going to stick with you, right? And that's such a falsehood. Okay. And failure is so powerful because the way we react to failure directly determines our learning and growth. And I noticed this. I was having a really hard time in my business last year, and I was really depressed and not understanding why I couldn't grow. But then in the gym, I was excelling. I was hitting numbers. I was like, I didn't even know my body could do this. And then I noticed that I failed a lift, and I laughed. I was like, how am I laughing at this failure? Like, what is happening? And I started paying attention. Okay, I'm excelling in the gym. What am I doing in reaction to failure? How is that propelling my growth? And the more that we pay attention to our reactions to failure, the more we can replicate that reaction in other parts of our life to help accelerate our growth and learning. Because that laughter, and I also look for like compassionate feedback, that allowed me to be open to growth and understanding that failure is not the end of the world. It's not permanent. And that I can immediately change what I am doing so that failure feels less significant and more useful in my life.
Yeah, I spoke about this on the podcast before, but I've had failures, as everyone has. Everybody, look, you're not on your own here if you failed at something. Mm-hmm. Every single person in the whole entire world has failed at something. But I've had big failures in my life, whether it be through professional sports or whether it be through business. Haircuts. We're nearly, we may talk about the haircut at the end of the week. But yeah, so I've had haircut failures, but I've had big failures through sporting performance and professional sports and businesses in the past. But every single one of them has led to me being where I am right now. Mm-hmm. And whether you fail or you win, you're still going to be the exact same age as what you are on today. Time's not going to stop. Time's not going to go faster. Time's not going to do anything. You're going to carry on your journey. So it's what can you take from those? Mm-hmm. How much can you learn from those failures? A, to make sure they don't happen again, and B, to make sure that you react in a different way if the problem presents itself again.
Yeah, it's another common thing that keeps coming up. I think every guest we've had, even without asking them about it, they've all talked about their failures. And we've obviously had a lot of successful people on the show, and each one of those has accepted their failures, and they've all admitted that without those failures they wouldn't be who they are today. So it is just so important to fail and to grow from it. And like you said, if you can channel your failure in one element of your life into another to make you grow overall, that's another really interesting way to help you improve and to continue growing and make the most of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I do want to add, like, from the learning side of it and what your brain is doing, a lot of people, they'll get really sad about failure. They associate, as I said, negative feelings with failure. But if you start responding in a way that's positive, your brain is going to pick up on that and it'll start being more open to it instead of going into that fight or flight response. So you had mentioned something, you were in an experience, Sam, where you were being asked to force a laugh.
Yeah.
Which is funny because sometimes in response to failure, we need to force a smile. We need to force a laugh in order to jumpstart our brain into that chemical process. And it's going to be hard, starting out. But it starts with those small micro failures and changing your chemical response to those. And that translates to big failures and being able to respond well to that and actually be successful.
That's super interesting because I kind of guess that I've always thought of it as a different way, because being like an athlete and all athletes are super competitive. And when you lose or you fail, you don't like it. Mm-hmm. So what I've kind of done is like use that drive to learn from this experience so it doesn't happen again. Mm-hmm. But you're kind of looking at it from like, let's try and make that experience a positive experience.
Yeah, and so anger it can be a motivator, but it's a short-term motivator, not a long-term motivator. And so it can actually become more exhausting. So it's great for, if you're in a competition and you fail a lift and you get angry, right? And then you go back in and then you're able to, get a PB. But overall for learning, it's not good. It creates stress. It puts you in a chronic fight or flight or freeze response, which is not good for learning.
No.
Yeah, that's super interesting because I feel like if any CrossFit athletes listening to this, a very easy one to think about is when you fail a lift. And that moment when you fail a lift, that just like disappointment that fills over your whole body. And then you have a choice then. It's like, right, I'm either going to swear and get mad and be angry, or I'm just going to shake it off, smile, and use that as an opportunity to think, okay, why did I fail? And how am I going to stop myself from failing next time, and use it as an opportunity to grow and to learn and be like, sweet, I missed my lift. Now I've got something to work on and to get better at. Mm-hmm. And I think that's another good way to kind of deal with failure. Is in CrossFit we talk about always training your weaknesses, and Matt Fraser's like a great example of that. He kind of strived to have no weaknesses. So he had a big failure, I think it was on a sprint or a rowing workout, another one, and he did rowing intervals. I think he said something like 5 times a week. He's like, I'm not going to fail at that again. I've failed at it, and now it's an opportunity for me to fix my game and allow me to become the best CrossFitter that's ever lived. And that's exactly what he did, and used that failure to help him progress.
Yeah. And you'll notice that Matt, that anger doesn't stick for very long. His love of learning takes over, and that is what motivates him long term.
100%. Do we have anything else to add on to this section, Samuel, before we move on to the last one?
No, Nicole, you good?
No.
All right, let's move on.
Awesome. So this is a question we ask all of our guests, and I kind of half purposely left it off what I sent you in the week. Just kind of half purposely, just to put you on the spot a little bit. I like kind of this question to just be answered on the spot, just as like a immediate response. So it's, if you were starting your journey now, what's one piece of advice you would give yourself? So that can be business journey, it can be fitness journey, it can be life journey, it can be anything. What's one piece of advice that you would really like to have had when you were starting?
Play, yeah. I think I tend to be a very serious person, a very passionate person, and a lot of times that can lead to perfectionism, and I think that play is the exact opposite. It allows you to have fun and make mistakes, and I see the gym as playtime, and when I start not seeing the gym as playtime, that means that I need to move on to something else. And that just, it helps, it helped me get started. And I think if I would have seen it as play earlier, then I wouldn't have waited 10 years to step back into a gym and move my body.
Yeah. Samuel, you're definitely somebody who does not need to play any more than what you do.
Yeah, life's having fun. Make the most of every
100%.
situation.
I think that really fits in well with what we've kind of been talking about, the fact of like switching your kind of brain thought into this is your fun time, so let's have fun with it.
Yeah.
You're not at the gym to become a professional athlete or to become a professional CrossFitter. You're there to have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, like talking about this is from a learning point of view as well, is when I'm having fun, I feel like I'm working better. And I don't know if that's something you can elaborate on, but if I'm working with my best friend, if we're like bouncing off each other and the vibe's good and we're having a great time, I wasn't talking about you, then suddenly I perform way better at my job. And I don't know what the reason is behind that, but even though it's hard to say that I'm not being serious in my job, because I'd like to say that I am, but I'm having fun, and then that's kind of the rest of the members or people that are in the gym are seeing that, and they're also having fun, and then everybody's learning better, in my opinion.
Like yesterday when you were bench pressing and we were shouting Ronnie Coleman quotes
Yeah,
at each other
exactly.
across the gym.
And then suddenly training becomes more fun as well.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I think there is actually something serious to take from this as well, and that is that as a coach, if we can remember as coaches that the time that people are spending in the gym is their fun time, it's their play time. So when we're programming or coaching, we're making sure they're having fun and they're enjoying it, and we're not putting too much pressure on them to hit certain numbers or to complete certain workouts in certain times. Remember that they're having fun. When they're having fun, then they're going to come back, they're going to enjoy the experience, they're going to get a lot more from it.
Yeah, definitely. And there is a science to this, if you're interested.
100%.
So there was a study that looked at baby bears, and they had some of the cubs in isolation, and then some of the cubs with each other. So they isolated play, and they found that the cubs that were able to play had better survival instincts, were critical thinkers, they were able to solve problems, and they lived longer.
You can see that in children though as well. For when I used to coach children, you can tell the ones who went to preschool and the ones who didn't. So when I used to work in schools, the ones who went to preschool had much better social skills than people who didn't, because they'd just been socialising at an earlier age and spending more time with people, having fun and enjoying themselves.
Yeah. And it helps with memory. It helps, you keep things light and fun, and your brain wants to latch on to those experiences and those memories.
I absolutely love that as a closing topic there. Just play more, have more fun.
Yeah, and then that'll mean that you work harder and work better.
Cool. So do we have anything else to say before we close this show down?
I'm pretty happy I took a lot away from that.
Cool.
I feel if anyone, like I said at the start, if you are a coach and you listen to this, then you cannot not have learned something. Like I'm already thinking now about setting up a coach's corner with Nicole so we can all learn from her about how to coach better at the gym. So hopefully we can sort that out after the show.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see, because obviously I do watch what you do at the gym a little bit. I'm intrigued to see how you bring in the poles and stuff into the warm-ups and stuff. I do think it's something I'm going to see tomorrow probably in the gym.
Yeah, I hope
Which
so.
which I'm looking forward to. I think always developing your skills is always a good thing.
Yeah. I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So, Nicole, for our 7 viewers at home who watch this and download this, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Nicole Szoko, as well as LinkedIn. Yeah.
Oh, the first
Wow.
LinkedIn one we've had. We've not
Yeah.
had a LinkedIn thing before, so there you go.
Is there any particular services you offer that might help our viewers if you want to sell yourself a little bit?
Yeah, so I help coaches create online programs, from workshops and masterclasses to group programs. I help you take your one-to-one to group online. So if you're interested in that, or you just want to learn how to teach better, let me know and we can have a chat.
Samuel, what have you got coming up? What have you got? Where do you want people to meet you? Do we have any new vlogs coming out? Maybe
I do. I literally just finished the vlog about a trip to Gilly Tea that I went with Mike and some other friends. So that'll be coming out soon on my YouTube channel, The Life of Bish. So check that out if you want to see a little bit more behind the scenes in Bali. As always, you can find me on Instagram at sambish92. Michael?
I am in Cambodia in 3 weeks for a performance seminar. I'm in Sri Lanka 2 weeks after that, I have one in Bali. The week after that, and then we go to Thailand for 4 weeks to do a tour of Thailand. We've got 4 seminars booked in, I think, and then we go to Austin, Texas for some performance seminars there. So if you guys are any around them areas, shout me up. We can buy some tickets and come and see me in person.
Yeah, we're going to keep the podcast going. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast on YouTube or on Apple Music or Spotify, so you can keep in check with us when we release the new episodes. We're still going to try to push out 1 episode every week. We might have to do it remotely, but we're going to keep the content coming for you guys. If you did get something out of this episode, please do share it around your coaches groups or your friends or your athletes or whoever you feel would get something out of this. Share it around so we can share the message Nicole has given us today.
Yeah, we may actually be doing a podcast in Thailand as well.
Will we?
In person, yeah. I think so.
Maybe.
I think so. I think that's on the cards as well. So, thank you very much for listening, guys.
Yeah, any closing words from you, Nicole?
Thanks for having me.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Sam, is today going to be the one?
Will you sing the song with me?
No, you can't ask. You
Don't shout, mate. They're going to be deaf for the song.
can't ask. Oh, no.
3, 2, 1. Da 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 da.
Da da da.
It's life outside the box.
There you go. Half.
I'll take it.
It's the best so far. It's
my
the best.
first duet.
Yeah, it's the best so far. I have a feeling that who we have on next week is 100% going to sing along.
Who's next week?
I'm not going to tell the viewers, but you know.
I've forgotten.
Oh, that's hard.
Oh no.
I don't actually
We haven't really forgot about you, pal. Okay, thank you very much for listening. Peace out.
Bye bye.